Hello, and thanks for using Tick Boom. For this question, I was sent the proof that you see here on the page. Now, at first glance, everything appears to be acceptable and in accordance with mathematical rules, but this outcome here at the bottom is clearly odd. If this proof were true, and it was the case that 2 is equal to 1, then all mathematics would be undermined, since one of the first axioms that we learn in math is that 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, and then everything builds up from there. Now, the person who sent me this didn't actually ask a question, they simply forwarded me the proof. So I'm working on the basis that they are seeking to understand what is the problem here. Clearly we know that 2 is not equal to 1, so there must be something wrong somewhere in this logic. Now, if we take a look through these equations, we start from the fairly innocuous a is equal to b. We multiply both sides by a, so we get a squared equals ab. We subtract b squared from both sides. We then factor these equations, so we know the difference of two squares is equal to a minus b, a plus b. And here on the right hand side, we can simply bring out the b and we get b, a minus b. We then notice that there's a minus b on both sides, so we can divide both sides by a minus b, leaving us with a plus b is equal to b. Now we know that a is equal to b, which means we can replace this a here with a b, giving us b plus b equals b, giving us 2b equals b. And if we divide both sides by b, we get 2 is equal to 1. So nothing really jumps out in any of that as being obviously wrong. But there definitely is an error lurking in there, but it's almost hiding. So it's very unsurprising that many can get fooled by this proof, even though it's really just a fallacy. What you really need to do is take a look at what happens here in this step when we divide both sides by a minus b. Now, at first that seems okay, except that we need to remember that a is equal to b, which means a minus b is equal to 0, which means what we've really done here is divided both sides of the equation by 0, which we can't do because dividing by 0 is undefined. It's not possible. So there is the crux of the issue with this proof. It relies upon doing something that isn't possible, which is why we end up with this nonsensical result. Now, as a minor side note, you may have asked yourself, well, why can't we divide by 0? What's the problem with that? And it may help you to remember that division is really just the opposite of multiplication. So whenever you're trying to divide one number by another, what you're really asking yourself is, what times what will get me back to where I started? So for a simple example, you might ask yourself, what is 6 divided by 3? Now we know that that's 2, and we know that because when you take 3 and multiply it by 2, you get back to 6. Now if you then tried to do that with 0, if you tried to go 6 divided by 0, you can't actually find a number that you can then multiply by 0 to get back to 6. Because 0 multiplied by anything is still 0. And that's true of any number. Any number divided by 0, you can't get an answer because 0 multiplied by anything is always 0. So you can rest easy knowing that 2 is not equal to 1. This proof is not actually a proof, it's a fallacy. And everything you thought you knew about math is still valid. 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, and everything builds up from there. I like to think of this not as a proof that 2 is equal to 1, but actually as more evidence that you can't divide by 0. Because as soon as you try to divide by 0, you end up with these ridiculous results. All right, tick boom.